what degree does this person feel they can be healed?
If someone could be healed, but they, honest to God, had something inside them that caused them to feel they wouldn't be. Is it possible that someone could heal up? Yes. It is possible. But it is possible. But could we say that there's a force which may less than really be congruently in alignment? Yes. Could we say that if you're more lined up, is it greater possibility and potential? Yes. All of us can see this. So, the very first thing that I would like you to know is a neurological principle, which you should apply this in your whole life, for everything. Did you know that the Catholic Church, they sort of did a survey some years ago, and they kind of really wanted to know about ideas that were presented to the church, and kind of like what ideas would they adopt, what ideas did they adopt. And they did this survey, and it was amazing, because lots of people had good ideas, but those ideas were not the ideas that the church acted on. And they acted on some other ideas. And so the survey was about, well, why did you not act on these good ideas? Why was there an acting on these other ideas? And you know what it came back to? The enthusiasm. Someone can have a good idea but wasn't very enthusiastic. The person who was very enthusiastic, she or he was the force in enthusiasm for something to be done. So good ideas there's no shortage of. There's no shortage either of genius. There's a great shortage of persistence and perseverance. Persistence and perseverance. These are the things which win out. There is no shortage of genius, there's no shortage of good ideas, but there is a shortage of persistence and perseverance. There's such a phenomena that unless you have 78% of the nerve force, the message would other than be passed on. So if 67 or 68 or 73 or 77 and 3/4, 77.9% of you, if 77, 0.9% of you, well, that's quite a bit, isn't it? 77.9%, that's a lot. If 77% of you really wants to have something, but that other small percentage doesn't, guess what? It doesn't happen. We have little dendritic connections, like this sort of, and then we have an axon hillock, and then we have synapses. So little fluids, little chemicals get passed into this gap here, and that bridges the incoming messages coming from other nerve cells, and then the information. So you've got excitatory information coming in, and you've got inhibitory information coming in too, right? And then this is called the axon hillock of the nerve cell. So it sums everything up. It sums like the incoming messages and the outgoing messages, and it's trying to figure out, is this okay to pass on? Has to be 78% at least. If you get 78%, boop, the message will be passed on. It's called the all or nothing phenomena in neurology. It's so incredible that you could have 77.9 and only be just that so small a percentage off, but it's not enough to pass the message on. You have to have a large enough population of cells in the head to affect some change where you are. The medicine person, she or he, is aware in the looking in your eyes and asking you, do you feel it's possible that you can be healed? You get an affirmative yes, and you can feel that you've got at least 78% there. You know the mind is not part of the issue. Otherwise, we could know that the mind was part of the issue, which would need probably to be cleared up in some way, and we could clear this up. So we have an issue that can have been simply to do with how our mind has been. So let's just talk about this for 1 second more, and let me give you an example of how important the mind is to be in alignment. Studies were done on various types of interventions, and they used people who had been in car accidents, and they used the neck injury like whiplash. So they did a study with people who would be treated to be assisted for the condition that they had from the car accident, whiplash. And so they had all sorts of therapies. Now the first kind of a therapy that you might think of would be what, do you think? Most people would think, well, gee, you have to go and see a chiropractor, huh? Chiropractor. You'd osteopath or a chiropractor perhaps because there could be some structural change as a result of the head having been, and there could be vertebrae other than alignment and this sort of thing. So most of us, I think we said something that was more to do with structural alignment, didn't we? Okay. So now, of course, the researchers were thinking in terms of this too, and they thought, well, what sort of intervention is the best for whiplash? And so chiropractors was there, and they had other sorts of therapies. They had about 7 types of therapy. Now most of us, I think that you put your hand up, or you might have said chiropractor, or you might have said something structural. Did you know that when the experiment was done, that the manipulative type of work and this sort of thing had some success in helping recover, because versus people who really didn't have any help at all, just looked to see how long it would take them to recover. Short-term hypnotherapy was the most successful intervention. Out of all of the kinds of intervention, the most powerful intervention was short-term hypnotherapy. Does that make sense to you? How could it be that someone simply talked to another and engaged them, and they had a far more powerful ability to heal than the people who didn't have the short-term hypnotherapy, but they got manipulated and worked on?
Because they were able to, by accessing the subconscious mind, be able to get to that critical number of cells.
Yes. Because if you do acupuncture or acupressure, and somebody comes to you and they lay down on the table and you act on them, how much of that is a true healing therapeutic? How much of a waste of time could it have been that you always went, lay on the table, you got acted on, and that was good. Something beneficial occurred, perhaps, but you just really trimmed the branches where you were, kind of. You didn't get at the root. A true healing therapeutic is where you have changed your ways. A true healing therapeutic is you having changed your ways. if somebody was just being acted on, but they hadn't changed their ways, that's not going to be a true healing therapeutic, no matter what it is. A true healing therapeutic is you having changed your ways and focused on the thing that can give you a more powerful life, and wisdom is saying no to harmful things. Wisdom is saying no to harmful things. So short-term hypnotherapy had such a great success with whiplash, even more powerful than chiropractics, and that was kind of shocking to the chiropractors, because we always are thinking what we've learned and the skill we have, maybe this is the a la best or whatever, but it was shocking to them. And I can just share this with you. If you're taken through in your mind an anticipation of health is present, anticipation of normalcy is present. If you went to move your neck and you were the kind of person that was always dragging your history around and putting it in front of you, before you went to move your neck, do you have a feeling there could be some set that was set before you would go to move your neck? Yes. Do you think that it's possible that there has to be some sort of perception present when you go to take a step? Of course. What happens when the ground's a little lower or a little higher? You have a motor set of anticipation for the floor to be there, but if it was a little lower, all of a sudden, you had to activate some sort of reflex to navigate what the anticipation was. Can we say that those people who were adjusted by chiropractors and acted on, that nothing primarily was done for them that was to do with their anticipation of the condition they had? So in the days that passed, somebody before they went to move their neck, they can have anticipated something being present there, and that anticipation in and of itself causes the person maybe not to be in a realm necessarily of allowing a proper healing current to come to be as it can be. Why is it that if a wound is not sutured, it will heal up practically without any scar, and it will heal up underneath perfectly? Why is it that when we close over a wound, it doesn't heal as well as what it can? If the skin was broken open and it was sewed at the surface sort of thing, why is it that when tears occur and this sort of a thing, that if a tear occurred and we're allowed this to heal naturally, it heals up without any scar tissue much present if the blood's clean. But if you stitch it, you end up with scar material underneath the stitch, quite a bit, quite a thick. Not just a surface skin thing, but deep down you've got keloidal tissue in the muscle, if went down into the muscle. The reason why is because there is a negative healing current that's present at the site of the injury. That current is very important for the whole tissue to have been able to heal. If it was closed over, it loses that healing current, that current of injury, and then the electrical force is not present to mobilize mineral reserves into the area. So we do all kinds of things in the world at the moment, which is a great interference. 6 jumbo jets are shot out of the sky every day in America by terrorists in the medical profession. We lose 6 jumbo jets full of people out of the sky every day. It's the largest cause of death. It's the largest cause of death. It's called iatrogenically caused disease. Persons die of errors and misdiagnosis and being given treatment which the person dies of. Most of your relatives would probably be euthanasianised in the hospital, put to sleep. And so, could we say, first of all, that nature's operating table is doing what you can to make sure that your blood is clean? If your blood's not clean, is that going to really allow you to heal up properly? You had an injury, your blood was not clean, you're honest to God, haven't healed yet. Your blood has to be clean. If you had an injury and your blood was clean, it's healed up as well as what it can. If your blood was not clean when you had that injury and you ate lots of milkshakes and all sorts of things, that debris is deposited, present there, all sorts of material which can't really be broken down properly, and it's kind of like affecting that healing. So let's talk about this for a second, because there's a few things that stimulate a process of autolysis. Can someone tell me what autolysis means? Autolysis, yes. Autolysis is cleansing. Autolysis is the breaking down of matter which is not meant to be there. Autolysis. Autolysis, how do you trigger autolysis? How do you trigger this? We know lots of people, and they could really reduce in their weight, right? Could somebody be healed up from some overburdening of their connective tissue, overgrowth of their connective tissue, deposited material? Could they be healed if they didn't get rid of that? The body might not be healed, but the mind can be. A person could die tomorrow and be healed. Healing doesn't have to do necessarily, and being healed doesn't necessarily have to do with anything necessarily physical having changed. Health and wellness has to do with a state of mind, and that the body could have got to a place where there might not necessarily be a point of recovery, but you could be well. We'll talk about actually doing what we can to get this body into a state of autolysis as it can be. So what are the kinds of things that trigger the body to have gone into a state of autolysis? Because it generally doesn't do it in and of itself. At night when you sleep, some of this occurs a little. Only enough to manage things, but if things went beyond this, how do you trigger this state of autolysis? Fasting? Okay. By going without. Okay. So fasting. Okay. What other way can we stimulate? Now we're going to talk about what the meaning of this is and how this happens and that. But basically, if you've gone without, your body wants to break down stuff that, it's discretionary. It'll break down that first. Okay, so fasting. What's another thing? What's some other way that we can stimulate autolysis? Sweating, okay. So we're going to say by actually doing something which places some requirement. Places some requirement above and beyond what you have a fitness capacity for. So we could say by increasing your fitness level, We could say that fasting and cleansing all sort of similar, isn't it? So could we say that if you're not very fit, if your ability to transport oxygen, if your blood sugar is not kind of like level like it should be, if your endocrine glands are less than functioning and there's not as much vitality to move things, and this sort of a thing, we could say that all of this is related to how fit you are. If you don't less than have proper levels of magnesium is very involved in your ability to be able to detoxify. It's involved in 200 detox pathways. So we'll talk about this in a second. But magnesium, where do you get magnesium from? Marine vegetation. There's hardly magnesium found on the earth today. But you need magnesium. We need wonderful sources of magnesium to be able to detoxify, because magnesium is required for 200 different unique detox pathways. So could we detoxify from solvents and chemicals and all of this sort of thing without magnesium? Not really. So you have to have a fitness to be able to have autolysis, and we have to trigger this. So did you know that when somebody was missing phycocyaninins, which are these beautiful blue pigments, and they always had robbed things from their body with what they did, that the moment they had a tonic that had phycocyaninins, they threw the glasses away for about a month or so. All they did was have a tonic, and it improved their eyesight so incredibly. I'd love for you to be aware that the body is a lot like a building project. Can you imagine actually that you're building a house? We could build this out of material which will last 1,000 years. Or we could build this out of material that will only last 70 years or more. Right? Some material has very good integrity and other material really doesn't have much. So, if we, other than have the elements necessary, it's possible that autolysis less than can occur as it can. But if you'll bring these few things in that you have this building project, and all of the window frames arrived to put into this building project, but the studs hadn't arrived. How could you put the window frames up if the studs haven't arrived? If you're making an address, and you've got all the buttons, but you don't have the thread, what's the use? I mean, you've got to get the thread, so to put the buttons on. So the body is a lot like this. The body can have put on hold the very thing that needed to be able to heal until it had the necessary elements. So first we do what we can to make sure that a person's blood sugar is left at 85 milligrams per deciliter, because in the lecture you heard today that if it was above or below that your endocrine glands less than function properly. You have to have 85 milligrams per deciliter of sugar in your blood, which is a fasting blood sugar level. You have less than that or more than that, the endocrine glands just hardly function properly. There can be coolness, coldness, there can be not good circulation as well as what it can be, and this sort of thing. Okay, so when we finally have the elements necessary, it's possible for us to trigger this a little more. This fitness, we said, involves also you being able to get 78%. So could we say that there's also part of this fitness is your fitness emotionally, your fitness mentally, in your preparedness for healing, and your loving of your own self. Okay. So now when we go without, the body wants to break down material which is not meant to be there, and it triggers this. So your fitness, you raise HDLs. When you start to exercise and you start to raise your fitness level, you have a greater ability to burn fat. If you are able to exercise and you do a certain kind of an exercise, you could be doing a certain kind of an exercise which builds muscle. If you build muscle, then you've got greater fat burning potential. If you have very little muscle but we have a lot of adipose tissue, we less than have the machinery to burn fat. Only as a result of you actually having muscle is it possible to burn fat. So many of us could be fat, skinny people. We can be quite large, and most of it can be adipose tissue and not much muscle. And when one goes to actually do autolysis, because the muscles are very little, there's not much fat burning potential, but we've got to do what we can to slightly increase perhaps the burning of calories through raising your fitness and raising your basal metabolic rate and raising your warmth and starting to cause a greater fat burning potential by raising your fitness level. We've got to have nutrition and what you do in a balance. No matter where one is, there always is something you could begin with. I got a call from somebody and she was in tears on the phone and she said, "Dr. Jubb, you're my last hope." And I said, "Oh." I said, "Well, what's up?" And she said, "Well," she starts sobbing. She said, "I've called you because people told me you don't have any condition." And I said, "Yeah, that's right." And she said, "Well," she said, "what can I do?" She told me. "I get Meals on Wheels. I can't get out of bed. I can't prepare any food. And I'm stuck alone." And she was weeping. And I said, "Well, let's begin." I said, "You get Meals on Wheels?" She said, "Yes." And I said, "Well, that's okay." Yes. She wept and wept. And you know what we started with? I said, "You can't get out of bed." She said, "Yes." She said, "I can't get out of bed." I said, "So going to the potty is not so easy." She went, "That's right." I said, "And going to the potty hasn't been so easy for you at all." She said, "That's true, that's right." I said, "You're really not going to the potty, are you?" She said, "No, that's right." I said, "So you're eating Meals on Wheels, but there's not much coming out." And she said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "Well, how about we start here? How about we set something up with each other that for this week simply, all you do is we set something up comfortably within your ability to manage things, that you start to move your bowels a little more than you have. Will that be okay?" It's amazing because this person was a couple 100 pounds overweight and they had slowly become larger and larger and larger. And they've completely healed themselves up. They've reduced about 160 pounds of that weight. This person is working in town as a health professional. This was some years ago. So we do what we can to have the intimacy, not to have any conditions. Because when we come with conditions, we are not loving of our own self. And if one is not loving of their own self, how could ever love be? You have to be able to consider your own self as this brand new baby. And you hear a voice inside that says, "I love you. You're doing an amazing job. Thank you. How about you treat yourself? How about you do this a little bit today? Why not, hey, why don't you let those things go and let this be empty. And you hear a voice inside which treats you like you're this brand new baby. And you have this aspect of yourself which is intimate. That's how very important that we're intimate with ourself, because we could only have this intimacy with self, and it's possible to be intimate. And whenever we created conditions, we've not been intimate. But you look into the face of this beautiful child, and we ever are aware of the preciousness of this, and we ever are aware that this is like a rose, and that all of the things that are precious, they have some limit, and only will be for this time short. It's a small life. You and I, our body and our life is like a grain of sand on the beach. This I we've been talking about, that the seat of your consciousness is beyond your body, which is just like this grain of sand on the beach. This I that's within you is the ocean. And it's so large that no matter what happens, it just simply falls back into you. So nothing is able to leave you. Everything is always within you. So the more that it's possible for us to have had a fitness level, and the more that we start to go more without. So if you go without, your body automatically starts to raise HDLs, high density lipoproteins. That's kind of called what kind of a cholesterol is this? It's kind of called a good cholesterol, you know. They're neither good nor bad, but I can explain why it's called good. And you have LDLs. You have HDLs and LDLs. And the LDL is called it's called a low density lipoprotein, and a lot of people call it a bad cholesterol. HDLs, they are called good cholesterol, good kind of a cholesterol, because it transports things back to the liver. It's like, okay, we got this load and we're heading toward the factory irrigation sewer treatment facility. Right? So you need HDLs, don't you? Because if you're going to break anything down, you're going to actually clean anything in your body, you're going to actually bring something back into the liver so it can really manage and work with something, it can produce something, but you've got to have the forces to connect the liver with this stuff, don't you? You've got to have the forces to bring things into the liver. And the liver is the factory irrigation sewer treatment facility of the body. Could you imagine that the workers went on strike at that level? What would happen if we didn't send them their lunch? You know, they had no transportation to get there to the factory irrigation sewer treatment facility. So you raise HDLs by first triggering more of a need, right, by increasing something that you do a little with your exercise as you can. You do what you can to fit into the natural cycle, because if you, other than going to bed more naturally and getting up more naturally, you, just for an example, are not really following quite as you can this beautiful cycle of nature and getting nature behind you more. And you raise HDLs by having this fitness. By increasing your fitness levels, you raise HDLs, which transports things to the liver. And LDLs, what do? They transport things away from the liver, that's right. So when somebody's HDLs are very low and somebody's LDLs are very high, could someone explain what's happening? Huh? Yes, we have a lot of stuff that's being transported away from the liver. We have a lot of stuff that's being transported away from the liver. I hope my voice is not spilling over into the next room, because you can perfectly hear me, can't you? I don't have to be yelling. So LDLs transport things away from the liver, And so lots of us, we have why would we have a lot of material being transported away from the liver? Because the liver can't really manage what's being transported to it. It goes, oh my God, please, excuse me, but let me just transport that out, away. And so LDL's raised, because the liver is unable to manage things and has to transport itself away, and that's what happens. And LDLs are reduced. So when you change this around, you change it around by changing your fitness level, you rate HDLs. By going without more, you raise your HDLs, okay, and you lower your LDLs. And you have a better ratio. So now, let's talk a little bit further about this, because these two things are the primary things that assist you with autolysis: fasting and your fitness level itself. Your fasting and your fitness both are sort of combined, because when you fast, you're kind of going without a lot of stuff that can have caused that condition in the first place. If this machinery is not really working with the materials that it has, if you put more stuff in, how's it going to work with that? It's not working with the materials it has. So when we fast, we're going without all of the strange proteins. It's so incredible that when people were emotionally other than stable in the Middle Ages, they were emotionally not stable. You know, we call that schizophrenia and bipolar and depression, and you know, we got all these names for it, right? But they just had one name for all of this, and do you know what they called it? St. Anthony's Fire, I think it is. St. Anthony's Fire. So St. Anthony's Fire was when sort of people were a bit crazy, you know. They just said St. Anthony's Fire. Oh yeah, a person's got a bit of St. Anthony's Fire. And then if you read about how they healed this, lo and behold, you'll see text about it. They say a very strange thing, you know. Well, the only cure that we know of for St. Anthony's Fire is fasting. Going without fasting. So when you stopped eating all that plastic, I'm using it as a metaphor, when you stopped eating this chalk eraser, when you stopped eating that clay, when you stopped eating that bumper bar kind of stuff, you know, and that rubber and that cardboard, when we stopped eating those things, people healed up. This was the only cure that they knew of, they wrote about, and they said, well, this is a pretty powerful cure. Somebody's got St. Anthony's Fire. We know it's possible for them to be healed if they simply would fast. And they're going without the all kinds of materials that was causing the condition, and they're sort of having a greater fitness as a result. So the very first thing that you do is, as you develop your fitness more internally, and you go more without so that your body is more pristine, something occurs very remarkably. And as a doctor or as a health professional, you are looking at people's blood profiles, and you, by looking at their blood profile, can absolutely be aware whether this person can be healed or not. Either you have the machinery to be able to be healed or not. And that machinery involves a platelet, which is very, very important. If you don't have this platelet, as you have this platelet, you can heal. If you don't have this platelet, it's not possible to heal, okay? And now we're going to talk a little bit about this in relationship to autolysis, which is the breaking down of matter, which is not meant to be there. So we have three kind of plasma molecules, don't we? Do we have people, anybody in the health professions here a little bit? Okay. So we certainly have red blood cells, white blood cells. And what are the other kind of proteins we have? We have albumin, We have albumin, we have globulin, and we have fibrin. Fibrin, okay. So now, did you know that there can only be 75 grams per litre of protein in the plasma at any one period of time? That's like saying you can only have 75 trucks on the road, maximally. Maximally. Did you know that 80% should be albumin, at least? You know, so now albumin, let's talk about it for a second. Albumin transports all nutrients to the cells. Albumin transports all waste. Now, can you imagine how important albumin is? If you, other than have the trains pulling into the station to transport all the goods to everybody, if you've got millions of people, but you only have 100 trains, how's that going to work? But if you have 1 million trains and you have 1 million people, whoa, everybody's going to get their fed. Lipoprotein. It's like a transporting unit, that's all, right? So albumin transports all of your hormones, all of your endocrine gland substances. Albumin transports everything, even waste. So now, if you've got nice levels of albumin, but when we look at this ratio in your blood, albumin, so often globulins, they just tie this together, globulins and fibrins. So when you get a blood profile done, for the most part you'll just have albumin-globulin ratio. Your albumin-globulin ratio has to be above 2. You have to have at least 2 times as much albumin as you have globulins and fibrins. If you're below 2, that's going to be amazing. It's possible for you to be able to heal. Because now let's explain what's occurred for you. If you have inflammation in here, which most everybody in here does have some inflammation in here, right? If you have inflammation in the intestinal tract, for people actually listening to the tape, you've got inflammation anywhere in your body, inflammatory proteins are in the plasma, in your fluid of your body. Because protein from fibrin, from blood clotting, assisting to help clot things, spent red blood cells, and globulin, which is the proteins from immunity, or of immune cells, managing and modulating the inflammation, requires proteins. So if you have an inflammation in your body, what does your body do? It only can have 75 grams of protein in your plasma per litre. So what does it do? It reduces albumin. If you've got inflammation in your body, globulin and fibrin are raised to manage that inflammation, and at the expense of albumin. Albumin is other than present. Whilst you have wonderful levels of albumin, you are going to live a long, long life. Albumin, the amount of albumin you have in your body directly correlates with IQ and intelligence. I don't think an IQ test is a test of intelligence at all, but if we have other factors to rate intelligence, intelligence is directly related, and your cognitive, emotional functioning is directly related to how much albumin you have. For every 1 gram extra of albumin, that is billions and billions of trains. So whenever we've allowed inflammation to be anywhere, inflammation of the throat, very common, inflammation of the intestinal tract, very, very common, we allow any of these inflammations to be more than 2-3 days. Whoa, wait a minute. There should be no inflammation in your body more than 2 days, 3 days. So when we allow an inflammation to have been there for too long, globulin and fibrins can have been raised, and this ratio of albumin to globulin can have less than kept above 2. It can slip below 2, and then it means that we less than have the proper transportation vehicles to be able to transport waste and nutrients to the cells. So autolysis and the breaking down of matter which is not meant to be there, and nature's operating table requires that you have enough albumin. So now, for people who are listening, how do you get more albumin? What would I need to be able to do to get more albumin? Okay, we could eat less. Because what happens when we eat less? We have less inflammation?
Yes.
If we have less inflammation, we're going to have less of these. We could have a little bit more of that. Yes. If we can reduce inflammation in our body, we can raise albumin. Can you raise albumin if you don't reduce inflammation in your body? No. Excellent. Excellent. Right. So could we say that aging really is the challenges that your immune system has been having with all kinds of cross-reactivity, and eventually, finally, it just goes, oh, well, I've been doing such a vigilant job, and it's just been relentless, the amount of debris you've brought in, day after day. I've never had a rest.
The body's amazing that it takes so much of you.
Unbelievable, isn't it? Incredible. But why not give your body a rest from some of that stuff? Why not start with the things you just don't care about, you know? And then, you work toward the things you care more about, you know? But start with the stuff you don't care about. If you don't care about bread, let it go. That was one thing that I really cared about. God help me, I was so silly. But I'm loving of myself to allow myself to have had some bread, even though I knew it was such poisonous junk, you know. And it would be better for me to have a little line of cocaine instead, and always have that bread. You know, I'd never had a rest, especially when I first came to the mainland of Australia, because I never grew up with any bread. I never had any bread. There was no wheat. Could not be found growing in nature. Wheat doesn't grow in nature. And so the first time I had bread was when I first moved to the mainland of Australia, and I ate because I couldn't stand the pain that was suffering of animals, and I thought, gosh, gee, let me just be a starchaholic. Let me just be a carbitarian, you know. And I would just eat bread and potatoes mainly, you know. I was a bread and potatoes person until I learned, oh God, bread's like really bad. It's a drug. And I thought, how would I ever be able to eat a meal without bread? It was tough for me to consider. And so I had my life food meal and I had some bread with it. And I did that for a couple of years, you know. But I tell you, I let so much stuff go, it was incredible. And things I absolutely loved, you know. But it wasn't all of it. But eventually I let all of that stuff go, and even life food. But so that's so very important that we do what we can to be kind and gentle and soft and allowing. We put things in terms of what you can do rather than what you can't do. So very, very important. You've got to do what you can to be able to raise albumin to get a good health clearing and benefit. All rejuvenation, you know, when somebody goes on vacation, you know, and they come back, and you go, my God, you look great, you know. If you didn't know they'd gone on vacation, you know, and the person said, oh yeah, well I've been on vacation, you know. They're smiling. Wow, isn't that amazing? The person looked much better after they'd been on vacation. Isn't that so powerful when you've vacated yourself? You know, isn't it so wonderful? Why not actually imagine you're on holiday now? You know, you've arrived here in New York and everything is taken care of. You know, you're on vacation. You know, there are people who are interesting to connect to meet. You're in a strange land, in a strange country. You know, you're really loving to connect. This is Dr. David Jubb. This is the universe inside our mind. Stay tuned for some more exciting shows that's coming up. Love you, and I'll catch up to you in a future show. Who's in Manhattan here, by the way? Anybody in Manhattan? Oh, a few. Gee, wow, we've got a few people who've come a bit of a distance today. Okay. So a few of us in Manhattan. Does anybody watch TV much at all? Little. Isn't that incredible? Yeah, that's right. Oh, you do? So we have a show called The Universe Inside Our Mind. If you would love to catch some of this information, this is incredible. I always talk about something totally off the wall that you really should know about. No, you have to have somebody tape it here in the city. But I have enough shows that if you wanted to sponsor this out there, be the director of the show and sponsor it, I would give you the tapes, and all you do is go into the local, your local, you know, your local, what is it called? Access, cable access or something, you know, and you fill out the forms and things, and then you can have this show on there. Yeah. Okay. But if you are in town, there's the Universe Inside Our Mind, 6:30 every Wednesday, that this show shows. It's amazing that out of all the people who come and go here at the at the New Life Expo, did you know that these tapes, the tapes of the workshops that I've done, and the tapes of the lectures are the most bought tapes? And if you go and ask the fellow out there, all through the year, people are calling and asking Jeff Gold and calling him up, seeing what he can do to get a hold of the tape. And so, for the most part, what you're hearing today is unique, and I do what I can to kind of keep things on a level like this. So, you're our ambassador to get this information more out there. Certainly, you really want to have a good insight into albumin. So what's some other ways that we can improve albumin? We said by fasting, going more without the strange proteins, we have less inflammation and we have less globulin and fibrin, and we can raise albumin. What's other ways that we could raise albumin? Now that we know albumin is very important, what are some other things that you can do to raise albumin? Okay, so now we can really do what we can to make sure what we're bringing in fits more with the body, because that's going to reduce globulin and fibrin, isn't it? It's going to reduce the osmotic pressure on the blood, because you've not got extraneous junk in there. So your osmotic pressure of the blood can be reduced, and then the kupffer cells can produce more albumin, yes? Okay, so the kinds of things that we eat kind of affected us to have raised albumin by giving us better hygiene.
What about exercise?
Exercise will raise albumin, right? Exercise actually clears debris. Exercise typically does reduce inflammation and things. It lymphocyzes. It gets rid of strange proteins. It helps burn things up in your mitochondria. Why does somebody who has really eating well, live food, and exercising, she can be ovulating without menstruating? That's not uncommon, correct? Because menstruation is not dependent on ovulation. Not at all. You could be sometimes ovulating and actually menstruating. Ovulation is not dependent on menstruation. Menstruation is simply the process of clearing debris away. But when you exercise, have you ever heard of athletes who they're about 9% body fat? They're actually got nothing, more or less that's extraneous. They're so clean in their blood, she might not menstruate. A lot of famous people never menstruated. Joan of Arc, other people who know about Helen Keller, other people, Florence Nightingale, some of the amazing people in history that were great leaders didn't menstruate.
Are you saying you can ovulate? In other words, you can get pregnant but you're not menstruating?
Menstruation doesn't have anything necessarily to do with actually your process except to keep this clean. But if your blood is clean, there's no hemorrhage.
Because I have someone who has polycystic ovary symptoms and she can't get pregnant.
Yes.
Yeah, and it comes with insulin resistance, and she's saying that it's genetic. Is that genetic?
No, not at all.
Can you reverse that?
Maybe. She could reverse that probably by triggering autolysis, by doing Jubb cell rejuvenation, which we're going to talk. I'm going to make sure I do spend a little time to share with you what is the reason behind why we do the things we do. Why not just go to Hippocrates or go somewhere? You know, why have I written a program that anybody can do? You know, why those other programs you've got to really be supervised? Why have a program you have to be really supervised? Why not have a program that's safe for you? We're going to talk a little bit about this in a second. Polycystic ovaries really has a lot to do with excess of estrogen crystallizing tissue and no progesterone enough because of congestion. So that could be turned around and shrunk. We bring in suppositories which are tucked up close to the cervix to help shrink things. But I have a unbelievable way to help people on this level, which is non-surgical, non-druggist approach, by helping nature, by putting the person on nature's operating table.
And even with insulin resistance, is that polycystic?
Insulin resistance, I can understand. How could anybody have polycystic ovaries or diabetes or hypoglycemia or any of these conditions without other things actually really going on? This very thing really is because bile doesn't flow very well, because the tap's not turned on here, because there's congestion and things, and this sort of thing. So we need...
If she came to you, you could help her?
Yes, because we, or I, have found and apply what is universal. You could have gone to many doctors with symptoms, but going to the doctors with those symptoms will not heal you up.
Well, they're trying to get pregnant and they did fertility the first time and now...
Yeah. Well, I worked in a fertility clinic for many years when I first came to the city. That was my job. I was a short-term hypnotherapist working in fertility clinics here. So people wanting to get pregnant, I just would connect with them, talk with them, and many had great success by clearing away the very things that was less and allowing them to actually, just by connecting with them. But I learned also that this was only something, and I had great success just talking to people, but I could see that I needed to get them more fit and healthy too. So you take a holistic approach where we are. So as the osmotic pressure of the blood would be reduced, the Kupffer cells could produce more albumin. Now, some of us have got pens and paper. Write this down, those of you who have. You're going to optimize your bioterrain. Bioterrain optimization. If you could do your bioterrain optimization, you stand the greatest chance to be able to heal your tissue. If your terrain of your body, the terrain that your cells are living in, is not optimal, hey, how can we do anything with that? You've got to really get on nature's operating table. So there's three things which are involved in your bioterrain optimization. Bioterrain optimization, okay? There's three primary factors which you absolutely got to get down You have to get this down, otherwise you're not going to have your bioterrain properly. And how can your cells function if it doesn't have the electrostatic valence property like it should? Because cell insulin insensitivity, the insensitivity to insulin of the cell has been caused because of a condition the person has. And we've got to get this bioterrain back into optimization. So there's three primary indexes which make up a bioterrain. And the first is conductivity. Conductivity. If you have a beaker and you have like a probe and you have a wire running from that probe connected to a battery and a light and the way that it's going to be connected is to another probe that you put into water. So the only it's connected circuit as a result of there being ions in solution. If ions are not in solution, no conductivity takes place, right? You can't get a current to flow. Can you get your current to flow? Can you get the current to flow? If your current lesson is flowing, how are you going to be able to be on nature's operating table? You've got to get your current to flow. If you did things like water out of plastic bottles, is that going to give you that? No. If you eat heat processed food, is that going to give you the ions and things necessary to have this? No. If you don't eat clean food and you've got debris coming into the body that insulates unless it allows proper conduction, you've got to have your conduction down. Very important. Your bioterrain optimization only occurs as a result of having your proper levels of conduction. Does your person that you've connected with you, do they feel a little faint? Not enough iron, minerals in solution. Not enough minerals in solution, not enough water in your blood to run your body. Hey, did you know you've got to have 10 gallons of saline solution in there to run the hydraulics? If you don't have enough minerals in your plasma, how can you have water? You have to have reduced the water. And if you reduce water, do you have enough hydraulics to run the equipment? No. It's like you're missing 3/4 of a litre. You're doing everything, but you're missing 3/4 of a litre. You're doing everything, and sometimes you feel fatigued. You're doing everything. Sometimes you got to stand up, and you're sort of missing a little bit there, and this sort of a thing. You're missing phosphorus and sulfur, which cause you to have proper consciousness and things. You're peeing it all away. You're drinking stuff, it's washing it out more. You're eating things, and there's no hydrotropic elements coming in to bind moisture to the protein of our cells, and there is very little conductivity. Very, very simple. We clear away all the insulative materials. What's some stuff that insulates and stops conductivity? If you don't have enough minerals in your plasma, how can you have water? You have to have reduced the water. And if you reduce water, do you have enough hydraulics to run the equipment? No. It's like you're missing 3/4 of a litre. You're doing everything, but you're missing 3/4 of a litre. You're doing everything, and sometimes you feel fatigued. You're doing everything. Sometimes you got to stand up, and you're sort of missing a little bit there, and this sort of a thing. You're missing phosphorus and sulfur, which cause you to have proper consciousness and things. You're peeing it all away. You're drinking stuff, it's washing it out more. You're eating things, and there's no hydrotropic elements coming in to bind moisture to the protein of our cells, and there is very little conductivity. Very, very simple. We clear away all the insulative materials. What's some stuff that insulates and stops conductivity? What's the primary insulator? Fat. Fat. I hope that you really can get this. Fat. Now, fats either have two poles or one pole. Fats have to have two poles to get a proper electrics. And if it's a trans fatty acid, if it's a cooked fat, if it's a damaged fat, it's rancid, it's dead, it's very problematic. And it's less than going to allow proper conductivity, because fats cause the body to be insulated. Insulation. It causes insulation. So if you bring a lot of fats into the system, is it going to create proper conductivity? No. Matter of fact, it's going to cause the blood, rather than to be discrete, it's going to cause the blood to be clumped.
Good fat?
All fats in excess, and all fats in excess, and most people eat fats to excess, but all fats are going to, for a while, less than allow this proper surface exchange to occur in your body. It's going to cause a clumping and have less than proper good levels of surface exchange.
Are we talking about also olive oil or flaxseed
Yeah.
oil or avocado?
Well, we're talking about all fats that's beyond what the body's ability to manage. And we're talking about fats that are trans fatty acids, which are really rancid. So we're talking about rancid fats, and we're talking about fats coming in, which is beyond your ability to kind of manage that.
Well, how do you know? We decided that we take good fat.
Okay, how do we know?
How much is...
We can tell that fat metabolism is not occurring well because your stool floats. If you do floaters, that's generally indication that fats are not being broken down properly at all.
Now, I was told that that should be a healthy movement, that it should float.
Yes.
You want it to float, and that
No.
has to do with probiotics.
No, you don't want to float. That's, this is somebody, give me the name again. Yogi Bhajan, and then who else?
I don't know who I've read it.
Okay, Yogi Bhajan is one person, most of the teachers eat rice. Most of these teachers have no teaching about sex and gender. They're babies. They're not mature. Most of these teachers are so goddamn immature, I swear to you. Yeah, he just passed on, didn't he? Last week. The Tantra person. Yeah, he was a very amazing person, relatively, but he did eat a lot of rice, But they don't eat a lot of rice. They just eat modestly, relatively, and he ate modestly, but he ate a lot of rice in his life. All cooked dead food. No knowledge of nutrition at all, zilch. But had some insight into Tantra and movement of energy in the body and stuff. Yeah, amazing teacher. But, and then, this is one teacher who might not quite fit in this area that I just said, Because most of them, they really don't have much teaching at all about sexuality or gender. They're so immature on this level, like Guru Mai, the Pope, most of the priests. All of these people are very immature on this level. They're ashamed and embarrassed of their bodies. They have no teaching on this level at all, basically. Okay.
So, Dr. Jubb, are you recommending that we pretty much eliminate fats?
I recommend that you would move more toward calorie restriction as you feel drawn to. You could have more calorie restriction by only having had a few fats and not sort of had anything else, maybe because you felt satiated. And that's all you did. We could live a long life if we were more simple, and you just start sort of doing a little more calorie restriction as you feel drawn to. It's just such a helpful thing to go more without as you can.
No, I understand that.
But if you have some fat, that's okay, of course.
I would use olive oil or
Yeah, oh yes.
oil because I thought it was beneficial.
Well, it is to some degree, but it is cooked.
No.
All olive oil.
Buying fats that are not refined or cooked or anything.
No, well, if you have olive oil anywhere, it's cooked, except our olive oil.
No, I don't use
Olive
I
oil.
don't eat cooked food.
Yeah, but Most people do olive oil in their salads and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the olive oil I get is definitely when you say it's first cold pressed.
Yes, it means it's been cooked. That's cooked. You've got to know about how olives come to you, get in the bottle. You have to learn about that. No, that's all cooked. There's no enzymes in any of that.
How about flaxseed oil?
But that's okay.
Cold-pressed flaxseed oil?
Cold pressed flax, in some that has lignans, you've got some enzymes. But otherwise, no.
So without-
Is that cooked too?
Pardon? No, that's not cooked, but it's so filtered, there's very little enzymes in it. There's no lipase in it, there's no lignans in it. What kind of coconut oil? Oh, that one, that has enzymes in it. That's cold processed, it's just spun.
Carmen just said that he, out of his experience, and people on average raises their LDLs and raises their cholesterol levels. Now everyone is touting that coconut butter, and he's saying
It does not raise LDLs, no. It raises HDLs. Lots of studies show that coconut butter raises HDLs. That's a good thing.
Research when he has the people there and they test them after they do some coconut butter, their cholesterol levels go up. He just said that.
Yes.
I don't know.
Well, okay, so we just heard that when somebody eats coconut butter, your HDLs will be raised. Isn't that incredible? We know that's a good thing.
No, he says the cholesterol goes up.
Yeah, but look, cholesterol is HDLs and LDLs.
He says the LDL.
Yeah.
I hope not.
Well, first of all, what kind of coconut are you talking about? Dead coconut, rancid coconut? You're talking about coconut that has water processed with it?
Organic.
Yeah.
I'm talking
Could be
about
organic.
the cocoa de
No, cocoa de cream.
is good.
That's a good kind of a coconut. How much do you use of it? These are all things. But that's a very good fat. That's the most useful kind of a fat on the earth, that one.
What about hemp oil?
But I just want to say in the 70s, you know, I was aware of how the corn board and the soy board in the 70s, Brian Clemens would not remember this. He wasn't even in the picture then, you know. But he might have the after effect of the corn board and the soy board. They put misinformation out to the American people. They said that tropical oils are bad news for you. Why? Because it raises cholesterol. So why does what kind of cholesterol does coconut raise? HDLs. HDLs are very important for you. Right, so if I just say to you, oh, coconut raises cholesterol, most people think, oh, cholesterol's bad. But cholesterol's not bad. You need to have some of this. And you need to definitely have your HDLs. And it's better to have it raise HDLs and lower LDLs. Coconut shows that it raises HDLs and lowers LDLs.
And grapeseed extract. I mean grapeseed oil.
Oh, grapeseed oil? Grapeseed oil is very inflammatory. Yeah, because it's extreme amount of omega-6. Imagine just sitting and eating all those seeds to get that much oil. You never could. You'd be poisoned before you did. That's not a good food, no. It's inflammatory. It doesn't matter. Oh yes, a little bit you could have, but you're doing too much omega-6, which is inflammatory mostly. Most people are doing 40 times more omega-6 than they should be. It should be 1 to 5. And that's not what Udo found. Udo didn't really look into this, not a physiologist. Okay.
Kind of a recipe. Well, how much flaxseed oil would you suggest on a daily basis or weekly basis?
Probably it would be wise for you to consider bringing in some flax or borage or something like this, because most of us are not getting any omega-3s at all. You know, but if you go without, this will produce perfectly the ratio of 1 omega-3 to 5 omega-6. Your intestinal flora, if you're healthy, will produce this ratio for you.
When you say if you go with that, you're saying eliminate all these fats and oils?
If you eliminate fats and oils, your body will produce essential fatty acids.
Really?
Your intestinal flora.
You know, I deliberately, I put in my smoothies to get good oils into it. So here you're telling me not to do that.
When you can put that into your smoothie, it will cause your bile to move. Whereas bile at the moment may not move for you. When you put oil in, it actually causes the bile to move.
So that's good.
Yes, it is. It can be very useful
Yeah,
because it
I
causes the
think
bile to
it's
move.
Allowed them just to choose each one, the borage, turmeric oil, black.
It's helpful, helpful, but when you do that, you're not helping your intestinal flora. But let's say that when your stool floats, it means it's lighter than water. It has specific gravity is lighter than water. Wow, that's bad news. Yeah, it's real bad because it means what you've passed through you is fat, which is not broken down.
And I'm thinking there's something wrong with me. Why can't I eat right and do everything right? Why can't I?
So when your stool floats, it's a floater. It means fats are not being broken down properly. When your stool sinks, and see the best kind of a stool is a stool which is sort of sinks into the water a little bit and it's sort of suspended. It has a neutral buoyancy within the water. It's not floating, nor is it sinking. See? You have to have a specific gravity of no, not floating, suspended. These English words are different.
But in my definition would be if it's not sinking, it's floating, and that's good.
That's right, that too. If it's not sinking, it could be floating, like bobbing, you know. You try to flush it down and it just can't flush, you know. It's really bobbing there.
Where else can you have this conversation?
But so your stool, when you look at it, look back and see this, any disturbance of the water at all, like paper being dropped in there or whatever, any disturbance of the water, and you would see your stool sort of be breaking apart, sort of breaking apart. You know, that's a healthy stool.
So it's bobbing and breaking apart.
No, it's not bobbing. It should not bob and break apart. Bobbing ones tend to kind of be sticky. They tend not to be falling apart. Bobbing ones, ones that bob. But you want to make sure you're not getting the ones that bob. You've got to get the ones that are actually just suspended in the water. You know, they're just sort of suspended. The surface of the water is there, you know, and it sort of sinks into the water and it's just sort of suspended there. You know, it's just suspended, okay? And then with any disturbance of the water, you see it's sort of like, it's sort of breaking up. That's called a non-mucus stool. Stools which are so stuck together are called either a mucoid stool or a semi-mucoid stool. Dr. Naviz? Okay, let's go. Let's keep on track here. All right. So now conductivity. Okay, we've talked about it, right? Is everybody familiar with what this means? Okay, the next one is negative redox, or another way to talk about this would be antioxidants. All of these things go towards making up a nerve force. These three things, without these three things, you really can't have a nerve force or a chemical force. Your nerve force and your chemical force is really what's stimulating your cells. Without this bioterrain, none of this you can't have a nerve force. So negative redox is really the ability of your plasma to give off spare electrons. It's called negative redox, or what kind of antioxidant ability does your blood have? So for instance, if we take some of your blood, we put it in the beaker, and we see the flocculation rate. The flocculation rate, or sedimentation rate, is the rate of how much things come together and sink. How long does it take for the materials that's suspended in your blood to keep their electrical charge, have kept their electrical charge? That's an indication of the health of your body. So if you put antioxidants into some water and then you put something in there that will oxidize, the antioxidant will stop the oxidation process in the water, and that antioxidant will keep that from oxidizing a long time. If you put something into water where there's no spare electrons, what's going to happen? It's going to oxidize fast. So when you open up a pomegranate, you know, and you see that juice in there, could you leave it for 5 or 6 weeks on the footpath? Yeah, you can, pomegranate. Yeah, it's one of the very few fruits you can do this to. A bird could have bitten into that, or it could have cracked, and there it is on the ground. And did you know 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks it could have laid there, and it's still good? No. It could have a little bit, right? But pomegranate's so fierce, it's so powerful antioxidant, that that's a fruit that even if it's broken open, gosh, you can still get a lot of benefit from it. Oh yeah, it even still has a lot of benefit, even cooked. That's right, even pasteurized, God help us, it's still good. It's amazing. Pomegranate, there's no hardly better fruit quite. There's a few, but pomegranate's one of the most ancient ones. In ancient Kemet and all these places, that was one of the most powerful medicines. So now if you bite into an apple, 10 minutes passes by, what's happened to that apple? Wowee, so fast before you realize. But guess what, if you go to come down to Jubb's Longevity and you taste apple pie down there, that apple's as crisp as the day it was cut, put in the apple pie. Gee, that's amazing. You made apple pie but it's not brown? I can eat apple pie from you and it's not oxidized. The apple hasn't oxidized. Why? Because I'm very careful to make sure as a chef that we put things present to block the oxidation of the apple.
Like what?
We put tocotrienols, we put lemon in there primarily, right, to preserve the apple. And we preserve it fast. We don't, we make sure that's done quick so there's no oxidation at all, and it goes back to 41 degrees quick. There's no oxidation. It's at 508 East 12th Street in the East Village. 508 East 12th Street. We're having a tasting on Tuesday. Okay, so now we've got conductivity, we've got antioxidant ability. Is this making sense to you? Really? Yep. Okay, because you're going to know more than most doctors in town here. You sure this is not overload?
That's not saying much.
No, I know. But you sure this is not overload, right? It's not. Okay, we're going to keep it in kindergarten steps. 1, 2, 3, that's all. Okay? And you should ask others to. You say, whoa, just keep this in kindergarten steps, thank you. Just 1, 2, 3, that's all the steps we need. Okay. So far, 1, 2, 3. Conductivity, negative redox. And negative redox is amount of antioxidants that your plasma can give off. We've said, my God, that's so very important. We might talk about how do you get this in a second.
Yes.
How do you get more negative redox?
Yes.
Let's talk about this next. Okay, so the third one is acid-alkaline balance. Acid-alkaline balance. Your acid-alkaline balance. Did you know at the turn of the century, our blood plasma, our blood was 7.3 exactly, and our tissue was about 6.8. If you measure the inside pH of all the cells of the earth, minus the DNA, it comes out to 6.8. So that's just slightly acidic. So let's see, 7 is neutral. So 1 to 6.9 is acid, and 7.1 to 14 is alkaline. It's alkaline. So 1 to 7 is a scale. So the tissue of our body should be 6.8, just slightly acidic. And the blood plasma should be 7.3, just slightly alkaline. Most people's body has become very, very acidic, 5.8, extremely acidic, and the blood has become 7.4. And the disparity has grown between these two benchmarks. Now that's the most common thing that's occurred in modern society. Because of all the acid food, you have to have more alkaline plasma to manage the balance. If you ever put into hydrochloric acid a piece of organic material, saw it fizzing in an experiment at high school or something, you know, saw that fizzing, and then after a while it stopped fizzing. Or hydrogen peroxide, you might use hydrogen peroxide, you put hydrogen peroxide, you put some organic material in it, fizz, and finally it stopped fizzing. What was going on there? This is what happens in your body, unless you're in balance. You're going to have a fizzing until you're in balance. Your pH of your tissue being 5.8, which is very acidic, has to cause your blood to be more alkaline to make that in balance. And the disparity grows so far, matter of fact, there is no longer a tight friction grid for production of electrons in your body, actually. Which we're going to talk a little bit about. How do you go about putting a person on nature's operating table? We'll leave some moment for us to make sure that we have covered this. Okay. Okay, so how can we measure the pH of our body? Now, the saliva is a much greater indicator of your overall body pH. So what you're going to do is only take it in the morning, only a certain time of the day, and you be consistent because it will change throughout the day otherwise. So let's say you take it at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. So you take some saliva and you'll find what the pH of your saliva is. Let's say that your saliva is 6.8. Should be just slightly acidic.
You're talking about with litmus paper,
Yeah,
right?
like perhydrin papers or something. And so your pH of your saliva should be about 6.8. Because that's a greater representation of your overall body pH, you're going to multiply that by 2. And then, of course, you'll take your urine pH. Let's say your urine pH is 6.8. Should be 6.8, but it could be 7.3, 7.4. Could be more alkaline than it should be. Could be very acidic, perhaps. And you're going to multiply that by 1. So you're going to add these up and divide by 3, and that will give you an overall body pH. It's sort of like a benchmark.
And what's the good range? Between 6.8 and 7.3?
Yeah, it should be about 6.8.
So the saliva, you take it, times it by 2, urine by 1.
That's right. And divide by 3.
By 1 is...
Yeah, you're just adding that on, right? That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
I forgot my math.
Right. And dividing by 3, and so then you're ending up with an overall body pH. So that's sort of a benchmark. And then you do what you can to have it sort of reliable when you take it. Otherwise, what you've got isn't reliable. You might only have to do it 1 or 2 or 3 times to kind of get a sense, because that's not going to change unless some time passes for this to change properly. It's best to actually do it, that's correct. It's best to do this in a way that sort of you do the same variables, but you should do it before you eat, kind of, because then what you eat can be starting to majorly have an effect. Like if you drink the lemon juice, you know, you drink a lemon juice and then you taste it, you do your saliva, you go, oh my God, it's like, whoa. Like, but that did affect that momentarily.
Is lemon juice good to drink?
Yes, it can be very good to drink. Oh yeah, absolutely. Stevia is very marvellous, and some of us could certainly sweeten that with some honey too, if you want to.
Now, is honey good for honey? Because I know Bonnie's honey is not for it. Not for fruit, any fruit at all. And I think God makes fruit, you should have some fruit.
Okay. So now, Brian doesn't really do live food.
Yes, yes he does.
No, he does live food maybe. But he's first of all, I mean, you know, he did a lot of juicing of carrots and all sorts of junk. I know. But why doesn't he do it anymore? No, but because why? Because I said, stop doing that stuff. That is not live food. But somebody could continue to say they were doing living food, they just are not with the person who I was their scientific advisor, was this person's teacher. Yeah. Anne Wigmore, I was, Anne was Brian's teacher. But only certain kinds of honey. But let me just say something right now. Brian is not a botanist. He's confusing you. The idea that you do know fruit is untrue. Cauliflower is a fruit. A seed is a fruit. A nut is a fruit. Okay? You use the word fruit. You've got to know the definition of fruit. Okay? Have you studied any botany? This is a botanical term. Fruit is a botanical term. If you're going to use the word fruit, you've got to know what the meaning of it is. The idea that you won't have any fruit, dumb. We're frugivores, okay? We're not herbivores. Stupid. Look, everybody who's ever come from that program, I'll tell you right on tape here now, and everybody here, everybody's ever come from that program, every single one of them has got their bile-stones. Right. So, start at the top. Don't start down the bottom, okay? That's all. But you get information from somebody who got partial information.
Forget that. I just want to ask you a question. Hybridized things like corn, wheat, whatever. Science didn't, I mean, it was like thousands of years. The Indians, they...
Who? No, they didn't. I'm a study of the Indians. They did not. That's totally untrue. No. We've got 10 minutes left, kindly. No, the Indians never ate corn.
So who...
They only, let me just share with you, corn only came to America's, North America here, 500 AD.
So who hybridized it 500 years ago?
Oh, that's no, they don't even bother or even worrying about it. Because it could happen over a short period of time. It could happen over a longer period of time. But the time that it happened was short compared to our genetics. It's taken eons and eons and eons and eons and eons and eons to get this way. And corn, if we could say go back 100,000 years, which you can't, that's just one step in our evolution after walking several days. No, don't even bother even think. No, not at all. Thousands, no, nothing. No. Very, very disgusting, despicable food and absolutely poisonous, period. So I see on that program down there, they're doing a lot of poisonous food, which is not live food. That's a poisonous food. Don't grow wheat. It won't grow on the earth. Don't buy that stuff. It's junk. And the grass, the wheat, the juice of it is junk. And I don't recommend juicing at all, period. Juicing is not a whole food.
Because I said to him, grass, cows eat grass. Humans, he said for thousands of years, humans do eat the first food and evolved into other things.
Look,
and,
I'm a physiologist, and I'll just tell you this right now. We do not have the apparatus formed from having eaten grasses.
Okay.
No. But we eat some soft, lush things a little, and we pick that. But we just didn't live off. We're not herbivores. We're frugivores, okay? We're frugivores. Have to remember this. We're frugivores, not herbivores. That doesn't mean you would not have had a little green somewhere here and there. But most people eat way too much greens, and they've got a lot of cadmium excess, especially wheatgrass juices. Because there's so much cadmium, and that's incredible.
I just noticed you guys both have an issue with each other.
Mhm.
Both doing great work.
Oh, no, I don't necessarily think that at all.
Well, but then I just want to say that...
But what do you think is great? Tell me what you think is great. But what do you think is great,
What I
though?
think is great is that people try everything else, and when they're finally ready to give up, they go to the packers and they get it.
I personally feel that's something. But that's something. But you know what? I won't be satisfied just with somebody's definition about something. I won't be satisfied necessarily that someone's really not looking, at all. But change something around a little bit, but not enough. Not at all. Okay? But I would not want to be compared with another person who hasn't ever really studied this at all, you see. But always putting this work in terms of that, I just wouldn't do it. But I see people who are fooled by going down there. They're fooled.
It's a hell of a lot better than anyone's doing out in the rest
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily.
Because they are healing people.
Yeah, but Misha Cushing's healing a lot of people too.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's a step toward this, but I would not want to consider that live food is the same as what's been happening at the Poggers. It's not. Live food is, I do not want this to be confused with living food or raw food.
Well, it's not like you have an understanding of the yoga studying yoga.
That's a mixing of metaphor. There could be something that we could say specifically. So here's what I'll say. Specifically, this is a program without any strange protein. Specifically, this is a program, Jubb cell rejuvenation, which guards against prophylactic shock, which that program doesn't. I'm a physiologist. I would ask the people, the doctors, what are you doing to make sure a person maintains their overall water volume? Nothing. Zero. Because they do not know how somebody would manage their blood pressure. Most people have low blood pressure, and most people actually really go through a crisis a little. Yeah. But on my program, no. Okay? I don't want to mix of metaphors there. You've talked about two gurus. I'm not sure quite how that would fit with this. But I do see, I can speak specifically about this program versus that. And I can see this has great distinctions which that program does not have. Yeah. And that program has been moving more towards this over the years. But it could just, why not switch over? It's dangerous. If you're true to yourself, it's dangerous, isn't it? Because 1 in 10,000 people, honestly, can be truthful to themselves. Most people actually are not necessarily wanting to change things around. They don't even know my name. They have to stumble when they say my name. Brian Clemens had to stumble yesterday when he said my name, every time. And every time he said my name, he doesn't even say my name right. It's like, wowee, you know about enzymes, but you don't know about some of the top people in this field in the country. Why not?
Well, for me...
I've gone to hear Brian, and it was such full of crap, I swear to you. It was talking about AIDS. It was so full of crap, I realised, oh my God. And I just never went again. And anyway, Anne did not care much about the way that he stole that institute off her. And that's karma, okay? She was miffed a little till the day she passed on, I swear to you, to how he stole that work from her and tried to get her committed as insane.
Brian?
Now, I just don't like that. I don't like to be compared with somebody personally, I feel, who's not necessarily a spiritual person. I feel a lot of egotistical crap. Listen to the tape and you'll hear a lot of stuff. Talking about schedule, talking about everything, but what information do you get? I'm just going to be here to give you information, that's all.
Yeah, David, because I'm trying to do the best I can and learn as much as I can, and Brian is
Yes.
pretty well known.
Yes.
And according to him, they have the actual day-to-day working with people, in whatever, and I hear an overlap that's also contrary things, and I get,
Yeah,
I want to
because
do the best thing
experiments are done on rats that only live for 2 years.
Well, they do it on human beings, according
Yeah,
to
but what?
you.
But what?
Or the
If you're giving
workouts
people strange proteins, how do you know what you've got there? If you're telling them to eat stuff that you never would, how do you know what you've got there? You don't. You really don't.
You don't believe in sprouts.
No.
I think you said sunflower.
Most of those sprouts are poisonous junk. There is no such thing as the things they sprout that grow in nature.
Well,
But sprouting is called a living food.
Hi, I'm in the dark about a lot of this. Can you define to me what is life food? 'Cause I'm
Life
very
food
interested in
is food.
layman's.
Okay, great. Oh, that's such a great question. I like people who are sitting actually on this level because it's like the greatest question. Life food is food which has its life force and it can reproduce itself. A carrot cannot. Wheat cannot. Dates cannot. Corn cannot. Soybeans cannot. Lentils cannot. They are so poisonous that if you bury them in the soil, they will sully the soil. Okay? It's so poisonous. They're not life food because they can't reproduce themselves. They're so hybridized and engineered, and with some mollycoddling we can get them to come, but they can't eco-sterilize against mold, fungus and yeast. Now, they do living food down there, and it's poisonous junk. Thank God it's possible for somebody to survive, and they survive a little bit, thank God, but they all come back with weak pulses. They all come back with their bile stones fully intact still, and typically people can have come back and actually have some damage that's been done.
What about barley? Because I know organic by nature, David said,
Barley?
does a barley,
Barley's close to something, close to a seed. Barley's close to a seed.
so it's kind of okay?
It's close. It's closer. Rye is close to a seed still, not a grain.
Isn't rye hybridized?
It's close to a seed. There is rye seed that grows. There is barley also. There's kamut. No, excuse me, there's not kamut. That's a grain. There's millet, quinoa, amaranth,
The ancient grain.
chia. You don't call them grains. They're not. No, it's just like
And are they
fancy,
okay?
fancily trying to say they're rice or they're wheat. They're not. They're not grains. They're seeds.
And that's good.
Yes, seeds will grow in nature. A grain won't. A grain won't come from nature. So life food is food which has its life force, and it's prepared in a way that sort of maintains its life force, and it's prepared in a way that makes it easy to digest. So that is the definition of life food. So it has to be easy to digest. That's part of the definition of life food. You could prepare something and it just can't be digested. It's not life food.
Right, the dance in your body is sort of...
That's right. It has to be definitely be able to dance. If it's not there, it's whoa. God's missing a dance that ordinarily should be there.
Do you teach this at this?
Yes, I do. We're having a tasting coming up on Tuesday night. If you feel you'd like to come and taste things a little bit, and then I'm actually someone's asked me to talk specifically about immaculate conception. So I just will have 10-15 minutes of a small talk. And I just will share with you what is immaculate conception. What is immaculate childbirth? Because I birth babies as a doula, and I recommend people have a natural birth, and I can share with you what this is, because most people have no idea what a natural birth is. They just have no idea what it is. Huh? Also, too, we have some life food recipe books down the back, and we also have Secrets of an Alkaline Body, which I have some copies of, and I can do a signed copy tonight. And then also too, if anybody knows someone and you would love a session with me, it's the finest session, and I have more calibrated, sophisticated reading than any piece of equipment on the earth. So I can look and see what's going on inside your body, and that's my specialty. And then I have an estimated audience of maybe some 50 million people. And most people know me more as a result of being a psychic. I can sense the things going on inside of you.
Do you allow warm food?
Yes, life food. Oh, absolutely. Life food, it can be warmed up. It could be warmed up so you could still hold your little finger in there without going,
No, I mean warm food. You mean cooked food? Cooked food.
well, if you, how hot is it that you could just hold your little finger in there? Ooh, that's hot.
Oh, I see.
Ooh, that's hot, but you can keep your little finger in there? Can you keep your little finger in there? If you can keep your little finger in there, it's okay, you know, as long as you can keep your little finger. But if you have to go, ow,
Don't burn
it's too hot, that's all. I recommend you warm it up. I recommend if you warm things up a bit and that sort of thing. I'm in the process of putting together a Dr. Jubb's 22nd century cuisine. And I just got the trademark for this for worldwide, and I've got a group of people that are organising money, and we'll set the first one up here in New York City. But it's life food, fast food. Dr. Jubb's 22nd century cuisine. 22nd century cuisine. No, I'm not giving any more classes. I have books, and I won't be doing this show perhaps next year, I'm not sure. So this is the last workshop that I'm doing for this year, and this is the last workshop that I think I'll be doing for a while, I'm not sure. So you guys are it.
What about the 22nd?
That is a food which we're slowly moving more toward putting together. And I have some, and we're working toward getting some investors at the moment now. We have Dr. Narvez here. She does do groups in town here. She's amazing. She does outreach and does groups where people are coming and support groups and this sort of thing. You might want to make sure perhaps if you're interested to learn a little bit more, she's a senior Phoenix physician in town. So this is a great person to connect with. For the next little while, I'm not really going to be in New York, and I'm not sure quite what will happen in the future. So anyway, I really care very much about you having come to be here today, and for you who are listening to this tape. I hope that I really have sparked your interest and your insight into nature's operating table. We couldn't cover everything, could we? But we've covered some very, very basic things, which is important. You've got to get your bile flowing. That's the top of the intestinal tract. If you're not doing your bile flow and you go somewhere else, I'm going to say you've been delayed from your healing. And every single person that ever went through those programs, I saw their healing had been delayed, and they haven't yet completely healed. Jubb's 22nd century cuisine. That's going to come to be like a fast food chain. Yes, yes. But anyway, do what you can. Come on down to Jubb's Longevity. Let people know about Jubb's Longevity. You know what I mean? This is so new, this insight. But it is key. And we make amongst the best food, no, I won't say amongst, the best food in town. We make the best cheese, the best milk, the best yogurt, the best hamburgers, the best smoothies. Yes. And everything is live food. There's no wheatgrass, none of that junk. We're open from 11 to 9. Anyway, I want to thank you if you have an opportunity. Thank you. You'll be our ambassadors. Leave good tracks behind where you're going in life, I hope.